Indiana Republicans now seem poised to redraw their maps next to prove their allegiance to Trump. And I've got 4 interviews. I speak with Governor J.B. Pritzker about Illinois' maps, Congressman Robert Garcia about the release of the first tranche of Epstein files, Tommy Vitor about the Trump-Newsom feud, and data-driven journalist Elliot Morris about Trump hitting a new low in his polling. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. Every single Republican lawmaker in Indiana has now endorsed the idea of a mid-cycle map redraw. This is a state that Trump won by about 17 points in the last election, where Republicans already control 82% of the seats. That's 9 of the 11 seats in the congressional delegation. I have little doubt that the redrawn map would mean that Republicans would control all 11 seats, giving them 100% representation in a state that Trump won with 58% of the vote. And of course, Missouri and Florida are likely not far behind. Remember, it's only August of 2025, so Republicans still have plenty of time to redraw maps in time for ballots to be printed, likely sometime in November, December, or January. I can sit here and rail against the Republicans. I can say that they've given up on democracy, that they've given up on the Constitution, that they know they can't win with their agenda moving forward, and so they have no choice but to cheat instead. I think that we have all come to the realization that we're not going to shame Republicans into doing what's right here. Their superpower, to their credit, is that they can't be shamed. So if our strategy is only to appeal to their sense of shame, then we're wasting our breath. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't expose what they're doing and yell it from the rooftops, but our strategy here to combat it has to go further. In California, obviously, it has. To the California Democrats and Gavin Newsom's great credit, they are backing up their words with action. They recognized a major problem, they threw together a solution in just weeks, and they got it done. Temporarily disbanding the Independent Redistricting Commission in favor of maps that are going to flip 5 seats to the Democrats and shore up 4 more swing seats is going to be on the ballot on November 4th. And look, I'm sure there were a million reasons not to do it. A million obstacles, a million roadblocks, but they got it done. They deserve all the credit in the world. But California alone isn't going to get it done. We need other states to step up because Republicans are a hell of a lot less discerning than Democrats. It takes barely any convincing to get Texas and Missouri and Indiana and Florida to accede to Trump's demands. So it's going to happen there. We pretend that there's still hope that we can appeal to their better angels at all of our own peril. So instead of wasting time hoping and praying, we need to move. I've made it my mission to get as many governors as possible on record on this issue. I've spoken with Illinois' J.B. Pritzker, Maryland's Wes Moore, New York's Kathy Hochul, Colorado's Jared Polis, New Jersey Governor hopeful Mikey Sherrill. Other than Jared Polis, who isn't interested in disbanding the Independent Redistricting Commission, despite me pushing, and Mikey Sherrill, who isn't yet governor, they're all saying the right things, but we haven't seen action yet. That's not good enough. Here's the deal. We are in an existential moment right now. I try not to be overly dramatic here because I think that maintaining a degree of hope is important, but we're watching democracy fall in real time. If ever there was a time to expend your political capital that you have built up, to stop worrying about being safe and unoffensive and circumspect, this is it. What are you building up political capital for if not to expend it at a moment like this? What could possibly be more important? Democrats are about to be shut out of the House forever. That means our agenda stops forever. It is damn near impossible to un-gerrymander maps once they've already been gerrymandered. Presumably these governors in these states care about some political issue, right? Healthcare, abortion rights, climate change, unions, jobs, gun violence, civil rights, whatever their animating issues are, it relies on a functioning democracy where Democrats have the ability to be able to win, to act on those issues. If Republicans redraw these maps and there's no response from Democrats, that's it. We're cooked. Now is the time to act. Not just to say the right things, but to do the right things. That's what you're going to be judged on. In the interview that you're about to see with J.B. Pritzker, you're going to hear him talk about the Holocaust Museum in Illinois, where visitors are asked if they're going to be collaborators or rescuers, bystanders or upstanders. And we often face this question, either explicitly or implicitly, about what we would do if we were ever in a position where atrocities were occurring around us. And we all like to think that we would step up, that we would speak out, be helpers, show some spine, do the right thing. And I'm not equating what's happening in the US right now to the Holocaust, but we are in a crisis. We are watching democracy fall. We might not see it clearly because we're in the midst of it, But we're at a pivotal moment right now in history. Today, our kids and grandkids are going to read about this moment, I can promise you. We need the people in power to recognize that if ever there was a moment to expend their political capital and use the power they've been entrusted with to offer not an ordinary response to an extraordinary moment, but an extraordinary response to an extraordinary moment, this is it. And as for the rest of us, our job is clear. We need to put pressure on the folks who are in positions of power. They are not immune to pressure. In fact, they're extraordinarily responsive to pressure. At their core, these politicians are self-interested. And so if it becomes clear that it is in their self-interest to act on behalf of the clear will of the people, then we got to make sure that it's clear. Write them, call them, tweet at them, post about them, tag them, show up, make your voice heard. Our window to fight back is closing, but it's not closed yet. And we should have every intention in the world of making sure that we don't miss our chance to actually fight back. Next up are my interviews with J.B. Pritzker, Robert Garcia, Tommy Vitor, and Elliot Morris. Here's a quick word from some sponsors, followed by those interviews. No Lie is brought to you by Hims. Through Hims, you can access personalized prescription treatment options for a wide range of personal health concerns. Hims offers access to treatment options that cost up to 90% less than brand names if prescribed. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hims brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatments that put your goals first. And this isn't a one-size-fits-all approach that forgets you in the waiting room. It's your health and goals put first, with real medical providers making sure that you get what you need to get results. Think of Hims as your digital front door that gets you back to your old self, with simple 100% online access to trusted treatments all in one place. To get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for personal health concerns, hair loss, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/BTC. Visit hims.com/BTC. That's hims.com/BTC for your free online visit. hims.com/BTC. Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescriptions required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information. No Lie is brought to you by Smalls. When the world inevitably goes downhill, which, let's be honest, isn't looking too great right now, you know the first thing I'm going to make sure I have with me. No, it's not my friends or my family. It's my cat and their favorite cat food, Smalls. And yes, I've said this before, it's not technically my cat, it is my neighborhood cat, but that cat is at my door every single day, multiple times a day. For all intents and purposes, that is my cat, and I love it just like I love the rest of my animals. This podcast is sponsored by Smalls. If you're a listener of this show, then you know that that cat cannot live without Smalls. So to get 60% off your first order plus free shipping, head to smalls.com/BTC for a limited time only. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients that you would find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. And I can promise you that when I feed it to my cat, he eats the whole thing, and I've tried the whole gamut of different kinds of foods. Forbes ranked Smalls the best overall cat food, while BuzzFeed said, "My cat went completely ballistic for this stuff." And after switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvement. That's a big deal. And if you have a picky cat, Smalls has a sampler so that your cat can try everything that Smalls has to offer. And the team at Smalls is so confident that your cat's going to love their product that you can try it risk-free. That means that they'll refund you if your cat won't eat their food. So what are you waiting for? Give your cat the food that they deserve. For a limited time only, because you are a No Lie listener, you can get 60% off your first Smalls order, plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/BTC. That's 60% off when you head to smalls.com/BTC, plus free shipping. Again, that's smalls.com/BTC. No Lie is brought to you by Acorns. Did you know that your money could grow on its own? No, it's not magic. It is compounding. That's when your money makes more money, and then that money makes even more money. Acorns makes it easy to give your money a chance to grow. When was the last time that money stressed you out, made you feel guilty, jealous? Money can make us feel a lot of things, but what if it made you feel hopeful? Get more out of your money and start building a better future with Acorns. Acorns is the financial wellness app that helps you invest for your future, save for tomorrow, and spend smarter today. Acorns makes it easy to start doing more with your money. In fact, you can start automatically investing with just your spare change. You don't need to be a finance whiz. Acorns puts your money into an expert-built portfolio to make sure that you're investing wisely, not wildly. Plus, Acorns can support your money goals in life. A new car, a first home, investing for your kids, saving up for retirement, and so much more. Acorns even has checking accounts that automatically invest for you and emergency funds that grow your money. money. It's all in one easy-to-use app. I've been using Acorns for a long time because I don't have the financial literacy or the time to be able to do this stuff on my own. That's where Acorns has been so helpful for me. So sign up now, and Acorns is going to boost your new account with a $5 bonus investment. Join the over 14 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $25 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/BTC or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 2 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/BTC. I'm joined now by the Governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. Thanks so much for joining me.
Great to see you, Brian.
So we have some news today as it relates to these Texas Democrats who have left your state and returned to Texas. The goal of their move, as far as they've said now that their quorum break is going to be over, is to really highlight this issue for the rest of the country. And so we've seen in California how we're moving forward with this redistricting referendum that's going to happen on November 4th. Obviously, you've been very present and forward-leaning in this fight. And so what's next as far as Illinois is concerned?
Well, remember that one of the purposes of the attempt to break the quorum was to give time for other states to prepare. And remember, there are two states, Democratic states, that have a real opportunity to try to counter what Texas is doing, California being the lead, New York perhaps being the other. And there are a few others, including Illinois, including Maryland and others. I think importantly, a strategy to try to push back against Texas and the entire endeavor is to try to pair up states, right? Texas and California. Does Texas really want to do this if California is simply going to negate it?
Right.
Does Missouri really want to do this if Maryland is really going to negate it? And so hopefully what we see is there isn't an arms race here or ratcheting up of this, but rather ratcheting down. We can always be hopeful.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think what we're seeing now is that we're going to have to fight the fight in California. As a Democrat and as somebody who believes that we should have independent maps drawn, you got to do that nationwide.
Yeah.
Can't do it state by state. And in the end, that's why we didn't get it done in Illinois, is because, doing it one-off is just unilaterally disarming.
Yeah.
And so what the Texas Democrats have done is given us time. And I think that's being taken advantage of now in a very positive way, because we're seeing a ratcheting up here in California, and I'm supportive of it and want to make sure that we're accomplishing what we need to. Hopefully this will stop between Texas and California and we won't go further than that.
If we do see a ramping up, if we do see that arms race continue, if we do see these Missouri Republicans redraw their maps, and then Indiana Republicans redraw their maps, and then Ron DeSantis's Florida Republicans redraw their maps, how are you going to think about Illinois' position in all of this in terms of being able to push back, knowing that we have limited resources at our disposal?
Well, let's step back just for a moment and recognize that they're breaking the law in Texas, literally violating the Voting Rights Act. And the purpose is not just to get Republican votes in Congress, because they know they're going to lose in 2026. And so they're trying to rig the game.
Yeah.
But they're also taking away votes from people in Texas, black and brown people, and their representatives. And the whole purpose of the Voting Rights Act is to protect those votes. So now we're seeing, as you're saying, there could be a contagion around the country. So the courts could have the possibility of standing in the way. We'll see. We'll see what the Supreme Court does on the Voting Rights Act in particular. And I'm an optimist, but I'm a realist too. So I think where we are is that all the states that have the ability to make a change are going to have to contemplate what that's going to look like, even Illinois. And we've got 14 of our 17 members of Congress are Democrats, 3 Republicans. People think it can't be done in Illinois, that we couldn't get any more Republican seats. That's not accurate. It's just not accurate.
Yeah.
Having said that, I don't think that we should be doing any of this. And I think we should all be reluctant in the endeavor. Meanwhile,
But I mean, look, Democrats have shown that reluctance by virtue of offering up independent redistricting commissions in the states that would otherwise be our Democratic weapons. They've been reluctant to do that, and that's why we have independent redistricting commissions in California, in New York, in Colorado, because we've tried to offer up, these good government solutions in hope that Republicans will reciprocate, and we've found that not only are they not reciprocating, but in fact they're going the opposite direction, and they're continuing to gerrymandered maps even further. And so I guess at this point it's worth asking, what are the mechanics of being able to do it in the event that we do see, yes, Texas cancel out California, but Missouri, Indiana, Florida, and I'm sure there's a whole list of other Republicans that are waiting to get pets from Donald Trump that are happy to throw their hat in the ring as well.
Well, I was not implying to you that we should be unwilling to fight fire with fire, because it's clear. All I was suggesting to you is that as Democrats and as people who believe in good government, we should just take a breath for a moment and see if we can't stop this from happening. Meanwhile, if it's happening, I'm a lead fighter here, and I'm going to do whatever I'm, able to do in order to push back, whether that's supporting California, getting it done in Illinois, or elsewhere. Look, we don't have a lot of choices here. We're going to have to, be in this fight, and the mechanics of getting it done are, of course, in Illinois we actually have fewer obstacles, arguably, than California or New York.
Certainly
right?
New York,
we don't have an independent commission. And we don't have to overcome the problem of an independent commission. We don't, so that can be done. All I'm suggesting to you is that before we take that leap, what we're hoping to see is that perhaps a state like Indiana, a state like Missouri will actually choose not to move forward on what they're attempting.
Right. Switching gears, but not to an entirely different subject, to Trump coming out today, knowing that he's already kind of got his hand in one pot by trying to force these Republican states to redraw their maps mid-cycle. Now he's also debuting this idea that he got from the champion of democracy, Vladimir Putin, that we need to eliminate mail-in voting altogether. Just your general reaction to what we've just heard from him.
Well, you know that this is part of a broad swath of endeavors to essentially suppress the vote across the United States among people that would vote against his policies, right? Which is anti-American, it's not patriotic, it's something that I think we all should pay attention to, and everybody should be outraged by. And indeed, I've called for people to, we've got to have mass protests. The saving of democracy is not a small endeavor, and we only have a few chances to make sure that happens. One is speaking up in a very loud voice today to make sure that people understand there will be real consequences if the Republicans carry out these policies. Second is we have to make sure we win in 2026. This is the thing that I am most focused on. We have to win. We have to win. And that means making sure we're electing Democrats across the board in districts across the United States. We have a lot of opportunities to do that. And by the way, the polls show that if we put our shoulder to the wheel and are able to actually effectuate what the polls seem to show, which is we're ahead in the generic ballot by a lot, then we will be able to stop Donald Trump in his tracks. But it's a year plus from now. Right. There's going to be a lot of shenanigans that they're attempting to play between now and then. And at every turn, we're going to have to stand in the way of his progress. As somebody who has not only come from a family that survived the pogroms and came to this country to escape the Russian Empire, which would have killed my family, and has seen the blessings of freedom, of free public education, the opportunity to succeed in this country, and in the end, for a great-grandchild to become governor of the state of Illinois. I'm somebody who also has studied and been engaged in the building of a Holocaust museum. And I can tell you that those experiences lead me to believe that if we do not ignite a pushback, a backlash, a rebellion in the streets against what Donald Trump is doing with megaphones and microphones and with the use of our ballots, that we may not have that opportunity some years from now, in fact, in a very short period of time. So that's why I've been engaged in trying to protect the mail-in voting in Illinois. Indeed, we expanded, during my time in office, we've expanded people's ability to legally obtain a ballot, vote by mail, making sure that we're giving people every opportunity. If you sign up for a mail-in ballot, now you can actually perpetually receive a mail-in ballot, acknowledging that you're a voter each time. And that, I think, is something that each state needs to do. And by the way, this is a state-by-state endeavor. Donald Trump doesn't have the ability to issue an executive order. He often blusters these things, and people, reel as if it's going to happen. Executive orders cannot negate the state laws that protect our voting rights in our states. One more thing about Illinois: we don't run our elections on a statewide basis. What I mean is, it's actually our county clerks that run the entire election system. It's probably the safest system in the entire country because you can't hack it.
Because it's decentralized.
It's decentralized. And indeed, it's monitored more closely at a local level than you can do perhaps at a state level. So we feel pretty good about our ability to protect at least people's ability to vote, and mail-in ballots, which have been increasing over the years. One more thing, remember, Donald Trump attempted essentially to interfere with the election in 2020 when we were in the middle of a pandemic. We had to create the ability for people to vote, and making sure that, that your ability to vote wasn't infringed by, a disease that he wasn't letting us suppress across the country. And so we went through all of that in 2020. I think people have come to see that more ways to vote, more opportunities to vote is better for the country.
Right, better not just for Democrats, but Republicans too. Trump himself is a vote by mail voter. I think you're spot on in terms of acknowledging all of the issues that we're contending with pointing out, we've spoken numerous times now about the similarities between what's happening in the United States now and what happened, with the fall of Germany in the 30s. And all of the elected officials in this country that are in the Democratic Party have access to the same information that you do, same information that I do, and yet there are so few people who are actually willing to call out this moment for what it is. Why do you think that is? Why are they refusing to recognize the urgency of this moment and the precarious state of our democracy? And what would your message be then in light of the fact that things are descending so quickly?
It's taken Democrats too long, elected Democrats, too long to recognize the challenge of the moment. I think there are a lot of people who, when Donald Trump got elected, thought, well, we survived his first term. If we just keep our heads down, maybe try to work together with some of our Republican colleagues, that's what they were thinking in Washington anyway. I never thought that. Several things I'd point out. One is, from day one of Donald Trump coming down that escalator, I have been pushing back and fighting back against Donald Trump. And when I got elected in 2018, like a lot of other Democrats that were elected in 2018, it was in part because people were just fed up already with, 2 years of Donald Trump was enough for people to say, we've got to stop this. And again, every speech that I gave when I ran in 2018 began with, everything we care about is under siege by a racist, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic president in Washington, D.C. And I mention that because here we are, it's heading into 2026, and much of the reaction to Donald Trump has been, well, we survived, the 4 years last time, maybe we can get through it. And yet, we're 7 months, going on 8 months of his being in office, and it sure doesn't look like the tenets of our country, the values of our country are going to survive if we don't all speak up and speak out. So I've been disappointed, I'll admit, in how slowly Democrats have risen up. But at the same time, I've seen more and more Democrats speaking out. It's taken people too long. Sometimes they've, tried to hide their heads, keep it low, and then they realize things in their states, things across the country are being eaten away at, right? Their rights, in particular their freedoms, are being taken away. And this idea that, you can put up with it continually, I think has finally gotten some to speak out in a way that they haven't before. Last thing I point out is that the public has never had to do anything like what we're describing, at least not in most people's lifetimes. It hasn't been since the 1960s. that people have seen that things around them are crumbling and that they've got to do something. And so most people are just trying to get to work every day, take care of their families, pay their mortgage or their rent, and survive. And that was before Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Now you've got on top of that, every day Donald Trump is attacking really what most working people are all about. Prices are going up. Your rights are being taken away. They're attacking the most vulnerable people. Sometimes it's your own grandmother because she's had her Medicaid taken away and can't stay in a nursing home, or your neighbor who's a veteran, or, in my case, my father, my grandfather, my brother-in-law, all, veterans. The rights of people are being taken away in a way that I don't think people have seen in their lifetime. So now, finally, I think people are beginning to catch on that if they don't speak up and show up and vote, it may all be taken away from them. And you must have an opinion, though, about, why is it, I didn't ask you because it's your show, but why do you think that there have been leaders that haven't spoken up?
I just think, I think it's not in our nature to do that. I think it's not in our nature.
Our, meaning
like
Democrats'
nature to go really aggressive, to think about how we can be creative about, look, when Republicans wanted to squeeze seats out of Alabama and Louisiana last cycle, they knew to put forward illegal maps that were in violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, knowing that if they did it late enough, the Purcell Doctrine would kick in and you can't make changes that close to an election. And so the court won't be able to do anything. And that's exactly what happened. The court said these are unconstitutional maps, but it's too close to an election. And it's just not in our nature to figure out how to break the rules, but we have to figure out how to do what, meet them on their level. And I think it's just an asymmetry that we've been contending with. I don't know why Democrats do it, maybe in hopes of getting some reciprocation that just never arrives, this elusive reciprocation. If we just do good government things, they'll meet us halfway, and they just never do. But we, this is Charlie Brown over and over and over and over as the football keeps getting taken away. But I'm trying to create an incentive structure for them to do it,
Yes.
amplifying the fighters and not amplifying the people who aren't,
And I do think that you're going to be judged in the end, in my view, about whether in this moment you stood up. I mean, I really think that's your public service, whatever it may be, right? You're going to be a congressman for the rest of your life or whatever it is. But you're going to be judged because we all get judged by these moments, right? What did you do? What did you do when the Nazis came to your town?
But I don't know if everybody's afraid of being called alarmist and being called it's happening. It's really actually happening. And I do my series with Mark Elias, and so I see the real intricacies of what they're doing in the courts and the way that they're undermining all of these guardrails to really keeping democracy afloat. And I don't know, maybe Democrats don't want to be seen as being alarmist, hair on fire, Rachel Maddow, blah blah blah. But you're right. I mean, this is the moment where people are going to look back and say what did you do when? And it's going to.
Well, that's why I think that's the thing that I want to say in the whisper in the ear of every Democrat who's elected.
Yeah.
Which is literally, this is it. Do you want to be remembered for anything?
Yeah.
Do you want to be remembered for capitulating? We say in the Holocaust Museum that we built in Illinois, we say, particularly to kids who go through the children's exhibit, we say, are you going to be a collaborator? Are you going to be a rescuer? Are you going to be a bystander? You're going to be an upstander.
Yeah.
And you got to choose in your life. It's easy to think, oh, I'm going to be the upstander.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when the moment comes, you're tested.
Yeah.
I do think that we're here. And I think if we said that to everybody and asked, which one of those do you want to be? That I think they would all say, I want to be the upstander. And that at this point in their lives, this is the moment when you're going to get defined.
Yeah.
So I have a friend in Illinois who, a state representative, when they were voting on gay marriage in the state legislature before I was governor, I talked to him. He was a Democrat, got elected in a Republican district.
Yeah.
So he's a moderate Democrat, let's say. And he said, I don't think I can vote for it because I'll get voted out of office. And I said, here's the thing. Did you go into being a state representative because you wanted to have a title for a while? Or did you go in to actually do something important?
Yeah.
And this will be the important thing that you did. And by the way, we'll all support the hell out of you when you run for re-election. But meanwhile,
Right.
This is what's going to define who you are. And if you lose, you lost because you did the right thing. That's what you'll be remembered for. And I have to say, he gave this amazing speech on the floor of the House when he voted for gay marriage.
Yeah.
And it was where he conjured up the images of, great Illinoisans and Martin Luther King too. And, talked about, that indeed he felt like this was the right thing to do. And he knew that people in his district wouldn't like it, but that they needed to understand that we're the party of civil rights, that we need to stand up for these folks. And he won re-election.
Yeah.
And I do think this is what defines you as a public servant. So anyway, you're helping people, I think, find their inner strength.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Thanks for doing it.
And thanks for fighting. I'm joined now by the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, Robert Garcia. Congressman, today is the day that we have been waiting for quite a long time. It is the deadline. Well, the deadline was a couple of days ago, but this is the day that the Justice Department has returned the first tranche of files in the Epstein file. So first and foremost, top line, in your preliminary overview of what you've gotten, what should we know about the files that you have received?
Yeah, what we have so far essentially is 33,000 pages of the Epstein files. Of course, we would not even have this had Democrats not forced that vote from Republicans. They've never wanted to release this. Our team right now, we've got an incredible team at Oversight, is going through all 33,000 pages. So it's going to take some time and a few days to kind of digest everything that's in there. What's really important for folks to know is, of course, is that they're releasing this in batches. So we don't know what the total number of pages DOJ actually has, but you can rest assured that they are certainly going to try to manipulate what they release, when they release it, and how they choose to present it to us. And so all of that is going to come out in the days and weeks ahead. But we're glad we have this first batch. And our intention is to ensure that we get as much of the information while protecting the victims that are in these documents to the American public.
In the beginning stages of what you've seen from these documents, is there anything that stands out to you?
Right now, so far what we've seen is a lot of information that is in the public sphere already. And so they've put out a lot of information that the public might already know, court transcripts, other types of transcripts that have been maybe reported previously. There is some new information in there that we are reviewing right now, but we also have to be very careful that we are, of course, protecting the victims, the girls, the women that were trafficked. And so we're being very careful about that. We do hope that in the days ahead, we'll be able to get that information out to the public, because we know that at the end of the day, James Comer and Donald Trump did not want these documents released. So getting them out there is going to be very important.
Is there anything you've seen with regard to redactions that's caught the eye of the team that's scrubbing through all these files right now?
Nothing yet, because most of what we have seen so far is information that is already publicly available. And so that does not to say that what we have isn't going to cause some concern. It's so early. We just got the files a few hours ago. We are definitely going to need a few days to go through it. And one thing that we're going to do is we're doing a quick review, and then we're going to go back to page 1 of those 33,000 pages and comb through this entire first batch. So there is an enormous amount of work ahead for the committee and for the team.
I want to read, and I'm going to put it right up here on this screen, an excerpt from a conversation between Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. She said, "I never witnessed the president in any appropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects." So first and foremost, your reaction to what very much seems like exactly what we thought was going to play out, which is, Donald Trump goes over to Ghislaine Maxwell, sends Todd Blanche over to Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell gives some statement that very clearly absolves Donald Trump of any and all wrongdoing. She is duly moved from a high security prison in Florida to a low security prison out in Texas. And lo and behold, this is very much in line with the statement that we just got right here.
Of course. I mean, look, let's be very clear. Ghislaine Maxwell is a convicted sex trafficker and a liar. She cannot be trusted. This is someone that trafficked young girls and women and essentially sent them to be traumatized, raped, and abused by powerful men and Jeffrey Epstein. And so nothing this woman says should be taken seriously by those of us that are trying to get to the truth. And I think it's also important that Todd Blanche was Donald Trump's personal lawyer before he became deputy AG. And so his arranging of this deposition, his them moving her to a less secure facility, we're not going to be tricked by this. There's clearly an agenda here, but we have to keep reminding the public who this woman is. She is a monster. She is someone that caused enormous harm. And so her view of Donald Trump should not impact ours at all. The other thing that she says in these released interviews that is bizarre and troubling is she takes essentially no responsibility for actually the abuse and trafficking of young women. She basically says, oh, well, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I actually wasn't involved in any of the trafficking. That's a lie. We have victims, we have witnesses, we have women that have come forward that have told their stories about Ghislaine Maxwell personally, essentially taking them, abusing them, trafficking them, and in some cases doing the abuse herself. And so that is who this person is, and who the Trump Department of Justice is now somehow lionizing and moving to a better facility.
And that's what I want to dig into here, this idea that Donald Trump swept into office and surrounded himself with people for whom accountability for those responsible for committing these heinous crimes was paramount. And now, far from getting that accountability, they are in fact entrenching the very system, helping the very people who are responsible for perpetuating and committing these crimes. And so, in light of what we're seeing right now play out in real time, in slow motion, basically, what's your message to Trump's audience, who basically were the victims of this campaign, this disinformation campaign put forward expressly to manipulate these people for their votes with no intention of following through?
Look, if you supported Donald Trump, you were betrayed. And even if this was a topic that was of interest or you followed the Epstein case, he has lied and betrayed his supporters and the American public. And for all those folks where this was important, I mean, I've heard from some of them. They were told time and time again by Donald Trump, by Kash Patel, by his entire crew of his entire MAGA supporters, the cabinet, all those folks. They said they were going to release the full files. Pam Bondi, the AG, said the files were on her desk.
Yeah.
If they're on your desk, release the files to the public. Why are we getting it in batches? Donald Trump and Pam Bondi have the power right now to get the public the full unredacted files. They can send it to the committee. We can get it to the public. We can get justice for these victims. This is a White House cover-up. The Donald Trump cover-up of the Epstein files is ongoing, and everyone should be focused on getting the truth.
Yeah, that was perfectly put. Can I have your reaction to the fact that it looks like the White House or the DOJ is layering on top of Dan Bongino another deputy FBI director, which is, by the way, not customary that there would be two deputy FBI directors. This comes in light of some other reporting that suggests that Dan Bongino is unhappy with the way that this White House has comported itself as it relates to the Epstein files. I wonder why. And so just your general reaction to the unorthodox nature of layering the deputy FBI director, and just beyond that, the broader response to what we've seen from Dan Bongino, who's one of those people I was speaking about, came into office, into this position promising one thing, and now is involved in the very cover-up that kind of flies in the face of exactly what he promised.
I mean, reports that we're hearing is, of course, that Dan Bongino is very unhappy as it relates to what's happening, right? Look, first of all, he was, as we know, coming into this already a conspiracy theorist. He's someone that already was saying a bunch of crazy things, but he was really focused on the Epstein files. He was one of the main advocates. And so when he got put there in place, we all thought, okay, this is a strange, unqualified pick. And since he's been there, he's clearly been seeing some things that he doesn't even like. So if Dan Bongino is having a problem with something, where we know his record and the way he thinks, there are some real serious issues, lies, cover-ups happening at the FBI and at the White House. over the Epstein files. So we've got to get to the truth. Republicans should join us. We want to get folks like Alex Acosta to actually be deposed in front of Congress. This is someone that knows more about the Epstein files and about Jeffrey Epstein than maybe any other like living person on the planet.
Yeah.
Alex Acosta, we need to hear from him. And so we're going to continue to push. A lot of files to go through, and clearly there'll be a lot more on its way.
Let's finish off with this. As we look forward toward 2026, obviously a lot can happen between now and then, but what would you in the House Oversight Committee, if you're chairman of that committee, what would you be able to do if Democrats had a majority as it relates to the Epstein investigation that you're not able to do right now? I know you had just mentioned Alexander Acosta. Just give us a broader sense of what it means for those people who do want justice for the victims of Epstein's crime, what it would mean if Democrats are able to take control of the House.
It means Pam Bondi in front of Congress. It means getting every document that we want out of the FBI. It means being able to actually probe any part of this case, of the crimes that we want, from not just the government, but from those foundations, others that may have information. And so if we're going to solve this entire case and actually bring true justice, we're going to need to ensure that we have the tools to do so. And so right now we're doing everything we can. We're limited with the Republican majority. My hope is that whatever that we get, we can get the information out, but we're not going to know the scope of this cover-up until we get this full batches of files, see how complete or incomplete it is. And most importantly, if the client list is not in these files, if there are redactions of certain names, that is going to cause huge alarm. And then we know that for sure they're hiding something.
Well, look, you deserve credit for on two fronts here. One is that you've stayed on top of the Epstein list scandal that Republicans have completely ceded, not just ceded, but in fact helped Donald Trump with the cover-up. You've got Mike Johnson sending everybody home so that they can't get this Epstein list released. So thank you for staying on top of this. And also on just like a kind of a different, and also just kind of on a different battleground here, folks who are watching right now should know that you took on a lot of red area in the redistricting fight that's happening right now. And you deserve a lot of credit because you're going to be running in a district that's much more difficult than the district that you won in 2024 as we head toward 2026. You've sacrificed a lot in terms of making this broader map better for the left. And so you deserve a lot of credit there because, look, it's, everybody in politics is generally self-interested. And so you've taken on a lot of area that's going to be pretty hostile to Democrats and the left more broadly. So just want to take this opportunity to thank you for making some sacrifices, in a job where folks aren't usually very willing to make those sacrifices. So, we appreciate that.
We have to win. So I'm happy to help. And I think actually I took on, more Republican voters than any other congressional district change in these new maps.
Yeah.
And I did it because we can win this district. I feel confident in it. And we all got to do our part to win the majority back. So,
well, perfectly put. We appreciate the sacrifice, and it doesn't go unnoticed. Congressman, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm joined now by the co-host of Pod Save America and Pod Save the World, Tommy Vitor. Tommy, thanks for joining me.
Brian, great to see you.
So the talk of the town right now is Gavin Newsom and his press account that are just kind of driving Fox News, Trump, Republicans up the wall. And so I'm curious, first and foremost, as we think about this, as we think about the effectiveness of this, beyond just, is it funny, is it getting retweets and likes and whatnot, if what you think about in terms of how really moving this kind of stuff is.
Yeah, well, win number one, we're talking about it, right?
Right. In the attention economy, that counts for a lot.
Yeah, there have been stories in Politico. There was a big segment on CNN. People are noticing what Gavin Newsom is doing, and it is getting him a lot of attention. And I think it's happening at a time where Democrats are desperate for the Democratic Party to fight.
Yeah.
They want a fighter. They want someone to push back on what Trump is doing. They're seeing him deploy troops to the streets of Los Angeles, where we live, in Washington, D.C., and they're like, who is pushing back? And they see Gavin Newsom, this account at least, like fucking with Trump all day, every day, and they like it.
Yeah. And what do you think that this does in terms of an incentive structure for other Democrats to kind of meet the moment with the same urgency as Newsom is?
Yeah, I think it's going to draw people into more fights, or at least like speaking out on more issues publicly, doing more interviews, and just being more engaged. Because Gavin Newsom feels like omnipresent the last couple of months.
Yeah.
It was like basically from the fires which is 8 months ago,
Yeah.
until now. He's been pushing back against Trump. He's pushing this big redistricting pledge to try to save us from what Texas is doing and Trump's efforts to basically rig the map so we can't win the midterm election. So I think there's probably a lot of Democrats who are thinking about running for president in 2028 who are wondering, how do we catch up to this guy right now?
Do you think that there is enough of an incentive structure that he's building? I mean, I know that we have some footage here from the polling as it relates to Newsom's new press strategy. I think we can roll that clip.
Yeah, I think it absolutely has been working in terms of generating attention, which is what he's trying to do, right? I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look right at the @GovPress office followers on X. That's, of course, where you get those sort of the account where Newsom posts those Trump-style mocking types of tweets. Get this. That account, get this, up 450% in terms of the number of followers since mid-June. And it's not just on Twitter, X, where Newsom is gaining. Even on TikTok and Instagram, his followers are up over 1 million since January alone. My goodness gracious. And more than that, Laura, more than that, what about Google? What about those Google searches for him? Get this, daily Google searches for Gavin Newsom up like a rocket. What are we talking about? Since June 1, up 1,300%. Compared to August 1st, look at that, up 500%.
So is there a world in which other Democrats who are seeking higher office, who are running for Senate, running for the House, running for president, don't see that and say, hey, maybe there's something to this strategy of not being safe, not being offensive, not being poll tested, not being focus grouped, and just go out there, do the thing as aggressively as possible, and we'll see, we'll see exactly what we want to come out of it.
I mean, look, I think the risk is they see what Gavin Newsom is doing and they do an imitation of it, which that won't work. Gavin has carved out this lane. This is kind of going to be his thing now.
We don't need everybody doing the all caps tweets.
No, imagine Mayor Pete's out there.
Yeah, an army of just Trump imitators out there, just Trump mockers, the whole Democratic Party.
Party of trolls all of a sudden.
Yeah.
No, I think what they're going to see is that Democrats want a fighter and Gavin Newsom is giving them that fighter. And I think that's very important. But also look, the prediction markets, I'm not sure what to make of them in politics, but the prediction markets on who will get the Democratic nomination for Gavin Newsom, he went from 11% in June to 24% now. So that means these odds makers think his odds of being the Democratic nominee for president have doubled.
Yeah. And granted, I mean, again, you take that all with a grain of salt because,
grain of salt.
What happens now might not be anything similar to what happens a week from now or a month from now. I certainly didn't sit there in January of 2020 thinking that the world would look the way it did in March of 2020. So all of those caveats notwithstanding.
Even though you were in Wuhan.
I was.
At that
I love farmers markets and I especially love pangolins, and you know about how obsessed I am with pangolins.
I know.
Wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, pangolin.
But I think what he's doing is smart for two reasons. It's not just the trolling, right? I mean, that is entertaining unto itself, and I do enjoy it unto itself, in a vacuum. But I think it's smart because it's driving people to his pages. It's driving Google searches up for him, but he's wielding it in a way that's responsible because, look, we're facing an existential threat at the hands of Trump and this Republican Party. They are right now trying to redraw these maps mid-cycle to scientifically engineer Democrats out of office to make sure that we don't have the opportunity to ever win again. So yes, it's existential for Democrats. Yes, it's existential for democracy. He's out there making that case, and in large part, one of the only ones making that case. I mean, there are a few others who are doing it forcefully. I mean, Beto has been doing it really forcefully. James Tallarico has been doing it really forcefully. J.B. Pritzker has been really good as well. But there are not that many people talking about the threats that we're contending with right now in the same way that he is. Certainly who aren't taking the action that he is, which counts for a hell of a lot more. But so I think that he deserves credit not just for figuring out a way to break through in this attention economy, which already is an accomplishment unto itself, but once he's got those eyeballs on him, he's wielding that attention in a responsible way.
Exactly. Yeah, he's not just trolling for the sake of trolling. He's growing his accounts and getting tons of people to Google him at a time when he's about to embark on this campaign to get California to change the way we do redistricting, and to do so in a temporary manner to fight back against a huge threat from Trump. So I think you're right. It's trolling with a purpose, and I think it's been very valuable.
And I think what's most telling here is the extent to which Republicans don't know how to handle it. I mean, Fox News is freaking out. Yeah. Let's throw to the clip of one Fox News host trying to navigate his way through attacking Gavin Newsom while at the same time ignoring the fact that what Gavin Newsom is doing is imitating Donald Trump.
Gavin Newsom, meantime, posting this on X, Liz, using all capitals, of course, trying to mock Trump, use Trump style. He's been doing this for a while now. He says, quoting, Trump just fled the podium with Putin. No questions, nothing. Total low energy. The man looked like he'd just eaten 3 buckets of KFC with Vlad. Admit it, Donnie J. You're terrified because this was the worst week of your life because of me, Gavin C. Newsom. I think he's trying to be funny. I don't know what he's trying to do, but it comes across as childish. And you're the governor of the biggest state in the union. What are you doing?
Tommy, your reaction to Fox News simply not understanding what it is that Gavin Newsom is trying to accomplish here.
We're not very self-aware over at Fox News, are we? I didn't catch until just now he looks like he's eating 3 buckets of KFC with Vlad.
Yeah.
Such a random swerve.
It's called the weave, Tommy. It's called the weave.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, look, Fox has, how many times has Fox played like an hour-long, just incoherent phone interview with Donald Trump where, if you read the transcript, it would look just like one of those Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, and they're like, you know what? Beautifully put by the President of the United States. We've got a new tone here. He's really just fitting into the job more and more on a daily basis.
And it's not just Fox that's getting mad. I mean, a bunch of White House spokespeople are like crashing out and lashing back and attacking Gavin Newsom. But when they do that, they just give him more attention. And that's not just like attention in terms of there's a back and forth and people like us notice it and read it. It's algorithmic attention, right? Yeah. Like when you are fighting with Gavin, when you're responding to him, when you're retweeting him or yelling at him on Twitter, you are making it so that more people see the things he is tweeting out.
Well, you know the rule. It's you quote tweet your friends and you screenshot your enemies.
Exactly.
And these people don't know that because they're so butthurt over what Gavin Newsom is doing. I'm gonna put an image right here on the screen of one of these latest instances of trolling. We've got Tucker Carlson, Hulk Hogan, and Kid Rock all kind of praying at the altar of Gavin Newsom.
I would love to know. I would like to have been in.
And the best part is the so nice.
So nice.
He makes an AI image of himself and then thanks everybody for it.
So nice. I would love to have been in the conversation where they decided which 3 individuals to put behind Gavin.
Yeah.
I think it was an inspired collection.
Yeah, I mean, divinely inspired, one might say.
Yeah, Hulk.
As it relates to Hulk.
R.I.P.
Well, look, we're going to take this moment right now to point out the fact that Pod Save America's YouTube channel, as of this recording right now, is just shy, a few thousand shy of 1 million subscribers. These guys at Pod Save America are in large part why I do what I do. They are and always have been a huge part of my media diet. And so everybody who's watching, if you are not yet subscribed to Pod Save America's YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything to do so. It's a great way to support not just their work, which is invaluable, but the independent media ecosystem, the progressive media ecosystem more broadly. Let's make sure that when people come onto YouTube to find news, that they're not automatically sorted into right-wing accounts, that they don't fall into these right-wing rabbit holes right away. So let's elevate the voices of people who are doing good work, and it does not get any better than my friends over at Pod Save America. So again, hit the subscribe button and make sure to support these guys who are doing the hard work every single day.
Thanks, Brian. And also, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed to Brian's channel, please do, because I believe the fastest growing YouTube channel in the last quarter was Benny Johnson from TPUSA. I think he had like 2.2 million new subscribers in just those 3 months, which one suggests that they are buying subscribers somehow.
Yes.
And 2, though, like that is bad because when people normies search for news on YouTube, they find that crap.
Yeah.
Because the algorithm will promote big channels and big accounts like that. And we got to push back.
That's exactly right. So for anybody watching, if you're not yet subscribed to both channels, I'm going to put the links right here on the screen. Tommy, appreciate your time.
Great to see you, bud.
I'm joined now by data-driven journalist, writer of the Strength in Numbers newsletter, Elliot Morris. Elliot, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks, Brian.
So we have some major news here with regard to Donald Trump's approval rating. Can you speak about the new update we've just gotten?
Sure. Well, so last week, the big survey came out as the new Pew Research Center survey. Now, the Pew Research Centers, they're a non-profit public polling firm based out of Washington, D.C. Their job is to come to the best possible measurements of public opinion in America on timely topics. So it's a neutral source. That's the big takeaway here on how Pew works. Their new survey last week, they find Donald Trump slumping to a 38% approval rating overall. That's among all American adults, so it includes voters and non-voters. That's down from 47% at the beginning of Donald Trump's term. So it's an all-time low for them. And then in our average of polls, so Pew and other polls, you don't have to take Pew at their word, Trump is also at an all-time low for his second term.
What about with young people? Because I know that was a particular focus of this poll where the results weren't exactly in line with the rest of the results.
Yeah, so young people, they were a big story of the 2024 election. You'll remember young people, those are voters under 30. They supported Joe Biden by nearly 30 points in the 2020 election. By 2024, they had moved about 20 points towards Republicans. They barely supported Kamala Harris in that election. So this is a group that you want to look at because they're important, they're big, and they're moving to the right. So among the young people who supported Donald Trump, Pew finds that just 69% of them support of the job that Trump is doing as president today. So you might say Trump has lost 30% of the young voters that voted for him. These are Trump supporting young people. Only a little less than 3/4 of them still are on his side.
So does it seem like these folks who moved, these cohorts, these demographic groups that moved toward Donald Trump in 2024, it would suggest then that these are not necessarily tried and true Republicans, that it's that their support for him may seemingly have just been temporary, and that they're not necessarily Republican voters who are going to vote for Republicans in the future, certainly not if they disapprove of the job that he and his party are doing.
Yeah, so a lot of the Trump voters, I might say, that were young people in 2024, but were Biden voters in 2020, they're not Republicans. They might vote for Republicans, but they don't identify as strong Republicans. They might not be firmly in that camp in the next election. We think that for a couple of reasons. First, on policy preferences, they're not conservative. They favor a lot of wealth distribution. In particular, they favor high taxes on wealthy people, and they are also opposed to a lot of the action in the Middle East, especially in Israel and Gaza. So that's not necessarily a conservative policy package. It's not the policy package of Donald Trump. On some of the particular issues of Trump's presidency as well, in Pew's survey, overall, Trump is underwater, and he's even more underwater with young people. So, for example, 61% oppose of the tariffs that he's putting into place. And the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, that's the Republican budget that passed last month, that's underwater by 14 points. And it's underwater with young people, too. So they're not Republicans. They're not Trumpers. I think that they voted for Donald Trump in 2024 because inflation was bad and economic mobility was really poor. That means that, hey, if inflation goes back up for Trump, they'll swing back the other direction.
Well, the latest polling that I had seen on inflation was that Trump's numbers on inflation are virtually tied with Joe Biden's lowest point on inflation when he was president, numbers that were so bad that it pushed virtually the entire country, including those young people that you're talking about, over to Trump.
Yeah, that's right. And we did an analysis of this on the newsletter, Strength in Numbers. So in peak inflation in Joe Biden's term, that's late 2022 to early 2023, Joe Biden had a minus 28 to minus 22, there's some noise, approval rating among all adults. So 60% of people are saying they disapprove of how he's doing and 30% are saying they approve. That's pretty terrible. And it makes sense why he was eventually forced out of running for re-election. So minus 22 to minus 28. Now, Trump is at minus 27 today. So his approval rating on the economy, on inflation and jobs is as bad as Joe Biden's was during peak inflation. And that's just to say, this is still an anchor around the president's neck, even though we've switched parties in control of the White House.
How are you thinking about the broader economic numbers in terms of our sprint toward 2026 here?
Yeah, well, look, it looks like inflation is resurging. There's the new producer price index numbers that came out last week. There will be new CPI numbers out soon. And they showed a resurgence in inflation, ticking up to nearly 3% at an annualized rate. For context, the Fed, the Federal Reserve, likes to keep that around 2%. And we were getting close to 2%, and now it's going back up. So that makes sense. Tariffs are a tax on consumers. Businesses get charged money by the government. They have to make up that money somehow so that the business doesn't lose money. We're the ones that pay for that. So it is an inflationary policy. It looks like inflation will start heading up as more companies have to price in those tariffs and pass the costs along to consumers, or they would go out of business. And hey, for the record, Donald Trump keeps increasing the tariff rate. He's not turning around here in the face of rising inflation and a softening job market. We saw, 45,000 jobs were gained between May and July, which is near all-time low for a 3-month period. America lost 37,000 manufacturing jobs since April, the exact industry that Trump says he's trying to shore up. So weakening job market, increasing inflation, I imagine that's going to be a pretty big draw on Trump's approval rating.
Well, I'm curious how this presents itself with Americans, because in the lead up to the 2024 election, you saw a very aligned, coordinated right-wing media ecosystem exploit the every time eggs went up by one single penny. Like, they are very good at being coordinated, echoing their messages, and making sure that they're promoting all of this stuff because it would help their political agenda. The left does not have a coordinated media ecosystem. The left is not putting hundreds of millions of dollars behind telling you that eggs have gone up two pennies, or that rent is too high, housing is too high, groceries are too high, which was the case in the 2024 election. And so they were getting hit over the head with a lot of this political advertising in the lead up to the 2024 election. And we're not seeing the same thing, partially because we don't have, that kind of an ecosystem, and partially because there's so much other shit going on. We've got troops deployed, we've got the Epstein stuff, we've got the maps being gerrymandered. And so there's so much to talk about that costs going up, and this 3.3% inflation rate kind of feels like the fifth biggest or eighth biggest or 10th biggest story in America right now. But I'm curious whether that is still presenting itself, if Americans are still feeling the effects of that inflation, even if they're not being hit over the head with it by political advertising in very much the same way that Republicans were able to do in the lead up to the previous election.
Yeah, so the political scientist in me, I guess, wants to say that voters feel the prices regardless of the signals that they get from the media ecosystem. But
yeah,
and I think your analysis of the media ecosystem is spot on. As you raise, there is an asymmetric environment in terms of passing along information about inflation to lots of voters, and there's lots of voters who aren't particularly cost pressured, right? Like, they have more than enough money to pay an extra 20 cents per eggs, but they really, really hate inflation because they get that signal from their partisan news networks. So I think that does play a role here, and I imagine that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would have fared a little better if they didn't have that partisan news ecosystem that's asymmetric and stacked against them. But look, 10% inflation rate is still going to doom the incumbent party. So
right.
I wouldn't have imagined necessarily the outcome to change. Today, what that means, right? What that means is that it's going to take a little bit longer for there to be a backlash against Trump than there was against Biden, even if you have the same inflation rate. Maybe that's how it should be, and Joe Biden was unfairly punished and Trump's getting a fair shake. I don't think so. I think it's more like there's a whole media ecosystem that's covering for the president of the United States because they have an interest in him staying in power. So, look, we'll see. I don't think we're going to get a 10% inflation rate. It might be more like 5%, but people already hate inflation. So even if it goes up to 5%, there could be some pretty severe electoral consequences for that.
This might be getting a little wonky, but I presume that the reason that the Fed is not lowering the interest rates is because we already have hot inflation, and so lowering the interest rates would make that even higher, would send that even higher. Do you presume that that's what we would see if and when when either the Fed under Jerome Powell or Trump's replacement, if we get to that point, decides to lower the interest rates, that we'll see inflation rates surge even higher? And wouldn't that be, if that is what happens, wouldn't that be completely antithetical to what the incumbent party would want, given what we just saw happen in November of 2024?
Yeah, this is the tricky part about being Jerome Powell. This is the hard thing about being the Fed, is you have a dual mandate. You want to keep inflation down, but you also want to keep the job market healthy. So if we get to the point where interest rates are making it hard for companies to hire, they need to take on debt to hire new people in a lot of cases, or there's just not enough money moving around in the economy, so these companies are having a hard time paying new employees, then they got to decrease the interest rate to get that money moving again. And that means inflation might go up a little bit. And they're constantly making that recalculation. It looks like there will be interest rate cuts later this year. They just haven't happened yet. The market is definitely pricing in, I think, 50 basis points, 0.5% of an interest rate cut this year. So I do expect we'll see it. It's not going to be enough for Donald Trump. He's still going to want that interest rate to be 2% instead of 4.5% or 5%. But I guess that's a job for Jerome Powell, not for me.
If you're a Democratic operative looking at the polling right now, what numbers spark your interest, and what do you look to exploit as we head toward this next election cycle? Because I know that there's a marked difference between, okay, let's talk about something because it's in the news and it's a juicy story, but it may not move people at all, versus, this may not get a lot of attention, maybe the economic stuff, but clearly we've just gone through an entire election where the economic numbers and inflation have a massive impact, even if they're the fifth or sixth or seventh biggest story in the country.
Yeah, the biggest story to voters is still jobs and inflation. That's the thing that Democrats want to exploit. It's a very easy narrative. The president has been out there saying he's going to pass all these new tariffs that's going to increase prices, but he said that this will be short-term pain necessary for America's national security. He said the phrase short-term pain to people. Yeah. I think that's very exploitable by the Democrats. Just say it's not producing the desired goal, which is right to onshore manufacturing here in the United States. We're losing manufacturing jobs and prices are going up. This is a pretty obvious L in terms of policy for the president. Yeah. So I would probably be exploiting that, especially, again, because it's the number one issue to voters. The other thing is we're seeing a resurgence in civil rights and civil liberties as they're important to people in America. That makes sense, I think, given everything that's happening with you mentioned troops being deployed to cities. That's one aspect of it. I think the immigration enforcement, especially deportations, has gone too far for the average American, so they see that as a civil rights infraction too. And there's some ground for Democrats to persuade on that issue, but I would expect the bulk of their messaging is going to be on inflation and jobs.
And the flip side of that question, if you're a Republican operative and you're looking at the numbers right now, what gives you some hope? What are Trump and Republicans going to be leaning on based on the polling moving forward?
So the strongest issue for Republicans is still immigration. They're underwater, but that is their strongest issue. You want to fight on your strongest issue. So, if you ask people, do you approve of how the president is handling deportations or immigration in general? About 45% say yes, 52% say no, they don't approve. If you ask them, for example, do you support how the president's handling border security or tackling crime? Then people start to be more forgiving of the incumbent party. They'll say they approve at slightly higher rates than they say they disapprove. So I imagine we'll get a lot of focus on border security. I live in Washington, D.C., so I see the Border Patrol agents walking around here filming TikToks. Weird. I imagine we're going to see a heck of a lot more of that as the election kicks up, too. It's just weird that national law enforcement is doing social media videos. This is strange.
Yeah. Well, this is the dystopian hellscape that we enjoy now. Elliot, as always, thank you so much for your time. Highly recommend for anybody who's watching right now, if you are interested in this kind of data analysis, please subscribe to Strength in Numbers. I'm going to put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. It is a great resource that I use every single week, and it's a great way to support independent media as well. So again, links on the screen and also in the post description. Elliot, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me here, Brian.
To listen to the audio version of this episode, click the thumbnail on this screen and make sure to subscribe to my podcast. And of course, to see more of my content, the subscribe button's on the screen as well.